Hey, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to Recruiting Insight. This is the place to be if you want to connect with the most successful recruiters, hiring managers, and innovators in the real estate industry. Hey, it's a great day to recruit, and today we're making a stop in Minneapolis and checking in with Ryan O'Neill. Ryan is the founder and team leader of the Minnesota real estate team. Now, this is a great name because they have been the number one selling team in the state of Minnesota for many years. Ryan started the team in 2005, long before teams were common in the real estate industry, and he built it into an organization that is much larger and prominent than most brokerages. Last year, they were ranked number 14 on the Real Trends list of the highest producing mega teams in the country. They got there by closing 2,200 transactions and $750 million in sales. Now, of course, it takes a lot of recruiting to achieve this level of success, and Ryan is one of the best in the industry at attracting and retaining the best agents in the marketplace. In fact, he's so good at attracting talent, the Minnesota Star Tribune named Ryan's team the number one mid-sized company to work for in Minneapolis. Now, this isn't a top spot for real estate companies. This is the number one ranking among all companies. I've never seen a real estate company win an award like this, so he must be doing something special. Let's jump in and see what we can learn from Ryan's achievements. Well, hey, Ryan, thanks for jumping in today. I really appreciate you taking some time today to spend with the Recruiting Insight audience. And just a little background, you and I have got to know each other over the last few years from some of the Recruiting Insight articles that we put out on a daily basis. So it's good to meet you in person.
Absolutely. Love getting your daily emails. So many great tips, and I can't encourage folks enough just to plug into what you and your organization are doing. I just love your stuff.
Well, thank you. That's a good plug to start the process here. So, well, hey, to get started here, you're one of the pioneers in when it comes to the teams movement and the real estate industry. Can you tell me a little about how you got into this and why you started a team?
Yeah. So as I was graduating college, I'm the youngest of six kids. And one of my older brothers, Tim, has been a lifelong musician. And so both Tim and I, as we were getting done with college, we went to the same school. I actually started in the music business as well. And so right after college was kind of full speed ahead, playing piano, selling some of our music in different places around the country. And have always enjoyed that, but this was the early 2000s when you could buy investment property, buy real estate with minimal money down. With it was just a totally different time, and I always had an interest in buying a duplex and buying some investment property. So I did. I ended up buying a duplex, bought an investment property, and then in the process got my license. And realized that I kind of liked working with other people. I liked the investment property angle, and really just started working as kind of a solo agent back again in the early 2000s.
Okay, so once you got into real estate, at some point you decided to start a team in this process. What were kind of the decision points there?
Yeah, for me, as I was getting busier as an agent, I was generating different types of leads and clients, and I found that obviously I could go and meet the customer and be there myself, or as things started to get a little bit busier, I got to know some folks around the Twin Cities who were fellow agents. Maybe looking to work together, looking for additional business to help them grow their business. And, that was kind of the starting point, or the genesis, if you will, of the Minnesota real estate team, is that early on, I realized that I could generate a client and pass them to an agent on our team, and the customer would have just as good or better of an experience than I ever personally could provide. And so I realized quickly, very early on, a couple things, Ben. I realized that, the business was not about me. People didn't really care who you are, but what they cared about was a certain level of service, a certain level of care, and a certain level of help. And so that is kind of the starting point as we started to add some agents to the team and slowly started to grow.
So was that common back then? Was it this is 2005 if I remember right? So was that kind of a new way of thinking about real estate, or is there others doing it as well?
Yeah, I would say real estate teams were not real common. Generally speaking, I started at a local broker here in the Twin Cities. Individual agents, being an individual agent was very common. I actually worked with a very good friend of mine. He had a kind of a smaller real estate team and was doing a great job. But generally speaking, teams were just not as common. They were not not something out there as much. And for me, I like people. I like being around others. I like the social aspect. And so the team idea and mentality really kind of made sense for me. And it's slowly started to kind of grow in the early 2000s.
Okay. So for those who don't know about your background, you do have a pretty large team right now. Last I heard is about 170. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's about 100. It's a little bit bigger. It's about 190
Okay.
agents.
You're growing all the time.
And interestingly, we've been the same size for probably the last 3, 4, 5 years. Very similar size, I would say.
Okay. Now, so since 2005, has the growth kind of been linear? I guess it's flattened off recently, or is it kind of a step function? Has there been some places along the way where you just said, I would really want to grow this thing faster and bigger?
Yeah, I think I actively sold real estate from the early 2000s till about 2012. So I'm working with buyers, sellers, investors, helping them, but also then starting to grow our team. And I realized that I couldn't do both very well. So in 2012, I decided to go all in on the agents on our team as my clients and working entirely from a kind of a sales manager, broker, mentor, leader standpoint instead of working directly with the customer. So since that time, that's really my day-to-day role now, Ben, is that I work with the agents on our team, helping them in kind of any and all capacities. I probably work more now than I did when I actively sold. But for me, it's a labor of love. And it's something I really enjoy. And so that kind of turning point really allowed me to focus more time on kind of building and growing the team.
Okay. Well, I want to circle back on that in a minute because I think that juncture where you decide that you're going to go full time in, we kind of sometimes I call it crossing the chasm. The Jeffrey Moore mentality of you got to make that jump eventually. But what are some of the advantages now you're on the other side? What are some of the advantages of having a large team?
Yeah, again, and as people are watching this and thinking about teams, larger teams. One thing I would always say is bigger is not better. Bigger is not better, as well as there isn't always a one-up. Like, in other words, you may be a super busy solo agent right now, or you may have a smaller team. There isn't always a next step. And I think what's happened with our team, Ben, is I didn't really begin with kind of the plan to have a couple hundred agents working with. For me, it was more, I'm very much a kind of a day-to-day person. For me, it was just focusing on the day, doing my best for that day, making an impact on those that I interact with. And I think, again, over time now with our team, being part of a larger team, there are benefits, obviously a number of different benefits for the agents, being able to get showing help, in a busy market like this, where you need, hey, can somebody show a house for me? I'm busy this afternoon at 4:00. We have it's a very supportive group, a very helpful group. And I think being part of that can help you get your clients in quickly. I think the camaraderie, the sharing, the environment can also be very, very much a big and positive thing too. So I think that as well is something that people really enjoy about our team.
And I could see that. I could see how that would really be helpful, especially if the culture's right. You know, you've got that sharing culture, you've got that the connection with the other agents and everything. Looking back, is there anything about how you wired this thing together that you would have done differently in hindsight?
Yeah, I think again for individual, for team leaders, brokers, one thing that I learned early on is that people are going to do whatever they're going to do.
Mhm.
And no matter how much you push, you sell, you do this, we're the best, this. At the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do. And I learned early on, I was a bit more maybe competitive early on, having a hard time understanding if someone left, or someone started their own team, or someone started their own brokerage. I think if I could go back, just to day one, I would say, look, again, the world doesn't revolve around what I'm doing with the Minnesota real estate team. And the more you can be supportive of your fellow agent and their goals and desires, whether it is starting their own team, building their own brokerage, that will give you a little sense of peace as a team leader. Now, certainly you can learn if people leave, hey, are there things you didn't like or whatnot? But I would say one thing about me is I'm very broker friendly. In other words, I have friends at all the local companies in the Twin Cities. I've had a number of very good agents who have left to start their own team, some to start their own brokerage, but always in a really positive way. And it's hard on a human level when you invest in people. But I think long term for me, it's this business is all about people for me. It's about relationships. It's about building goodwill and just doing the right thing. And I think it's so easy to get hung up on the competitive piece that you miss the human side of it. And I think for me, I always try to keep our people front and center, and that's just kind of how I'm wired.
Yeah, no, it seems to work for you, and that personality. I mean, there is a lot of very competitive people. Sometimes they even go over to the side of being a little jerky, right? And
Yeah,
and then that
absolutely.
that just doesn't work out. And it's great to see you be on the other end of the spectrum and have found such great success doing that. So that's awesome to see. Well, let's focus down a little bit on recruiting, a little bit
Sure.
in more detail. I
Yeah.
know that you just don't build something this big and prominent without being able to recruit and be successful at that. What would you say is your mindset or your philosophy around recruiting?
My biggest tip to everyone watching is focus on your existing folks. Focus on your existing agents. Take care of them. First of all, you have to have a meaningful value proposition, and I'm happy to kind of talk about that and what we do. But there has to be meat on the bone. In other words, you can't build any solid organization, any solid group with a bunch of fluff. And so for me, I'm kind of a small town guy, grew up a very blue collar small town person. And I look at it from our agent's perspective and say, what's in it for our agent? For example, is there a potential for business, for leads? Is there a potential for training to learn the business? Is the compensation good and fair? I think what's happened over the years, Ben, is there's so many different models out there that the compensation is good for the owner of the team or the leader, but it's horrible for the people out there doing the heavy lifting. And so I think, for me, I want to build a value proposition that's long-term and meaningful. And compensation is important. You need to know what other people do, but you also have to be fair about it. And so I think for me, that's a super important piece from a compensation standpoint. But then again, just from a kind of a fun camaraderie, a community standpoint, being able to create that environment is also something like, for example, with our team that people have really enjoyed over time. But from a recruiting standpoint, if you have one agent working with you, make it as good as possible for that one agent, because he or she is going to naturally refer you to other people.
Right.
And I would say for our growth, That's how our growth has happened. Now, I've watched a lot of your other podcasts, and again, I love the work that you and your team do. There's a lot of really good merit to kind of hardcore recruiting. In other words, looking at the 100 best agents in your market, calling them up, and building that relationship. For me, I have not done really any of that, like at all. For me, what I've tried to do is focus on who's with us, make it good for them. And then as a result, my phone rings. Hey, Ryan, my friend Frank works on your team, really is having a great experience, loves your leads, loves your training, loves the marketing you do, your radio show. How can I join? And so for me, again, the way that I'm wired is I'm not a hardcore salesperson. I am not going to call people up and say, hey, we're the best. You need to come join us. I think when you focus on your existing people, that can allow for really meaningful, sustained organic growth.
So how many in a typical year do you recruit?
I would say anywhere from probably 20 to 40 folks on any given year that I will recruit. Some of the agents, of course, like many other people, will run an ad on Indeed, will run an ad on Craigslist, and you'll get people that will reach out. We do have a fair number of new people as well, especially amidst COVID. The last couple of years, a lot of new folks. In the ads that I do, though, I put all the benefits right into our ad of like, why join the Minnesota real estate team? In other words, I just lay it out there. So when they're reaching out to us, they know kind of what they're getting into. One tip I would say for folks is that if you have someone reach out to you and they're like, hey, Ben, I really want to meet up and learn about what you do. What I like to do is I like to send them all of our information on commission splits, fee structure, leads, everything, so that they can review that. If they review it and then we meet up for a cup of coffee, then it's a much more productive meeting. I think it's, the natural thing is, hey, let's go meet somebody. Well, then you sit down and meet with them and they're like, oh, well, you guys charge something monthly? Oh, no, I don't want that. And now you just spent a couple hours on really a candidate that really wasn't a viable prospect. So for me, I lay it all out there. I tell them what it is. If they look at it, they like it, then we meet up in person.
So it's almost like a scarcity sort of principle. Hey, not everybody gets in here, or we don't work with everybody. We just want to work with a certain number of people, and here's how we do it. So you're pretty upfront about that. Sounds like.
Yeah, and I think again, from a human side, as you're recruiting people, this is such a specialized business. There's two main things that I look for: work ethic. I look for work ethic. I look for, what is their drive? What gets them out of bed in the morning? Are they a young parent that needs to make money? Are they someone maybe inherently competitive? They love to sell. I find, again, being in Minnesota, if they grew up on a farm, they almost always do extremely well because they're hard workers. They can get up and go to work. I've met a lot of really talented people that, good looking, talented, that can talk a very good game, but they get in the business and they just don't have any fire in their belly. They don't have any strong why that gets them out of bed. And so trying to determine those two things is very important to me, as well as, again, one other little tip is I'll look at their LinkedIn profile. If they've been at multiple companies over the years, you're probably going to have a hard time retaining that person. There's just some people that every 2-3 years they move, they do something differently. And so part of it is it's trying to find the right candidate. But for me, kind of with my musical background and my passion sort of in people, I want people that want to do the job. I want people that want to do it. And I find that it's such a specialized business that if their heart is not in the game, no matter how much you try to micromanage, no matter how much you force, push everything, it's not going to work out.
Right. No, that's encouraging to hear, and I think it's refreshing to hear that for a lot of people in this industry, because there's such whether it's real, sometimes it's real pressure, and other times it's pressure we put on ourselves to recruit at a high level. To have more of that organic sort of mentality is probably takes a load off of some people's shoulders, for sure.
Right. And I think there are smart systems, there's smart ways to really recruit. I know you had Rob and his team from Relatics on, wonderful guy, fellow Naval Academy, just super bright guy. Using systems like that, I'm actually a client of theirs, and so the kind of the short version of what I use, a lot of their data is you can keep track of agents who maybe are most likely to leave your company. You can keep track of agents who are most likely to leave other companies. So in other words, you can be smart with your recruiting and with your reach out. So it's not just a blanket spam out messaging to everyone. But I think from a fellow broker standpoint, look at your fellow brokers, try to look at them with a level of respect. Because again, who may be at Coldwell Banker, at Keller Williams, at another company today, may be calling you tomorrow. And so, keep good relations with the agents on your transactions. That kind of stuff can, again, if you're naturally good at that, it will help you. If you're more competitive, sometimes that can be harder.
Yeah, absolutely. But maintaining those relationships over time, I think, does support your culture. It does support this messaging this overall messaging that you're talking about. Well, let's pivot one more time here before we wrap up today, and talk a little about value proposition. So, sure. You talked earlier about, you've got to be able to compensate people properly. You've got to be able to really have some meat on the bone, as you say. Can you tell me a little about what that looks like from your perspective?
Yeah, for me, we separate our commissions always into two different types of structures, what we call kind of a team generated lead, which is something that I or the team have generated, and then what we call their personal business. In other words, their own transaction that they've done. For us, I'm a believer that, again, if they're generating their own business, they should be paid more for that type of business. And with our team, and for team leads, they're getting paid obviously less, whether say it's a 50-50 type of split on a team lead type of transaction. It's meant to augment and help grow their business. What's different with our team than a lot of teams out there is right now, there's a lot of teams in the market that generate a lot of business, but then they pass those clients to the agents, and there's maybe a lower than 50% split paid to those agents, where they're kind of a showing agent. They're a concierge. And those relationships, by the way, also stay oftentimes with that team. For me, I'm really much an open book. Like this year, I think our top agent has done 17 team lead deals. So he now has 17 new relationships. Those are his, by the way. If he leaves the Minnesota real estate team, if he goes and starts his own team, if he does whatever, those are his people. Why do I do that? Because I feel like it's the best for our agent on a human level, on a business level, on a financial level. And so where a team like ours can really gain traction is we do a lot of marketing, social media, Google, radio shows, print, all this type of stuff to generate business. Passing that business to our agent, they work it, they build a relationship with them, and they kind of grow that tree, that personal tree of business. And so that's where I think, again, teams can provide meaningful value, is generating that additional business and eventually helping our agent, where maybe this year 50% of their business is team lead, 50% is their own stuff. The following year, maybe it's 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, where they're doing more personal business, helping them grow. They're making more money. They're building their own brand. They are doing what they want to do. And so I think for me, there's more risk that they may leave. But again, that's with anything. People are going to leave if they're going to leave. So I would say from a compensation standpoint, just know your competitors. Know the market and ask yourself, how can I make it good for them? But one other quick thing I would say is that there's been a rush in our market for everything to be free. Give it away, free, 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 zero fee, everything. I think when everything is free, I almost kind of call it the race to the bottom, where you think about any business, anything of value, you're willing to pay some money for it. So I'm with our team, with our brokerage, there is a monthly split fee. So they've got to pay to play. In other words, it's not just a free type of deal. What that does is it makes less people perhaps apply, but it also helps people look at the business from a business perspective and realize nothing in life is free. And if you want to invest in your business, you're going to have to spend some money. And that's where I think, again, it's easy as a team leader to short sell yourself, do super high commission splits, everything for free, but then you invest all this time and you get all these agents that maybe aren't really valuing what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I could see that, and it becomes a cycle, kind of a downward cycle there of where there's not value, and there's not value on the agent side, there's not value on the consumer side, and it just becomes kind of a mess. So
Right.
so that's definitely something that would that could be something that would perpetuate over time. Well,
Right.
let's. What are some of the specific tactics that you're using when it comes to recruiting? Is there anything you mentioned, some Indeed ads, those kind of things? How about experienced agents? Are you attracting experienced agents as well?
As we speak today, I've got there's two agents from a very good firm that I've been kind of kept in touch with over time who are actually joining us here this week. So I'm super excited about that. From an experience standpoint, again, I think sometimes you have to take the long game. You have to build relationships with people. Social media is a great way. Just again, show people you care. Show people that you care about their lives, their family, what's going on. And I think, again, with my music background and just how I'm wired, that's something that I've done over the years. And in some ways, it's helped from a recruiting standpoint. People want to be around positive, uplifting, good mojo. And I just think that doing that, being that in your market can really be a bright light for other people that they want to be a part of. And so, certainly some agents are going to be all about the money or about different things. But I find if you try to package it all together and don't be too hard on yourself, at the end of the day, people are going to leave, as I mentioned. But if you keep evaluating your value proposition, and again, for us, it's leads, it's training, it's support, it's culture, it's care, it's fun. We do a top producer trip, Ben. If they sell a certain amount every year, I pay for a trip for them and a guest to an all-inclusive in Mexico. Nobody else in our market does that. People like that. They like fun. So, think of something that may be unique, that could be a way to help set you apart. For us, our team trip has been a huge differentiator where people say, oh my gosh, they give away a trip? Wow, sign me up. It's expensive. It's super expensive. But for me, it's about our people. Again, goodwill. And so again, from a recruiting standpoint, challenge yourself and say, what could I do to be unique in my market? What could I do to really stand out with agents?
Yeah, no, and these are things that you are just not used very often, and tools are things. I love the fun side of it. I just want to be part of this group, and I want to be there with the other people that are like-minded, and that is so powerful. So let's wrap up with one final question. There are a lot of our listeners who are either starting teams or have started teams recently. I'd say the last couple of years, or they're single office brokerages. Typical. Single office brokerage maybe has 5 or 6 agents initially. So if you're at that juncture, or you were at that juncture now, what advice would you give someone like that who when recruiting and kind of building this thing or getting to the place where you can scale it?
Yeah, take it very slowly is what I would say. Rome was not built in a day. Take it very, very slowly. As I mentioned, focus on your existing folks. But I think, again, being a team leader is much different than being a busy, successful agent. You need to have a level of empathy, a level of patience, a level of listening, a level of taking Sunday night phone calls when you may be busy at some event. And frankly, you may not be wired to do that. And that's okay. That's okay. So it's kind of the old adage, know thyself. If you, if you're a busy solo agent, you've got a few agents, more is not better. You have to know yourself. If you're going to grow a team, you need someone who will do the things that I just described, and be there for agents. If you don't have that, the team won't last. It may be a quick poof, but then again, 2, 3, 5 years later, it's not going to last. And so I think you have to place yourself in a position that, do you enjoy doing what you're doing? And is it something that you're good at? And frankly, again, there's a lot of really good individual agents I know who are not necessarily wired to be team leaders or brokers. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There isn't always a better step. So that would be my biggest advice, is maybe ask a close friend, ask your spouse, and just say, hey, what do you think? Am I wired to be a good team leader? Am I a good coach, patient? Do I have empathy? Do I listen well? Again, you can improve, and you can hire someone to do that as well. But I think it helps. For me, the last thing I'll say is I'm really involved with our team, Ben. People call me daily. They email me daily. I'm meeting them daily. I'm not a delegator. I think it's easy to delegate everything out and you lose touch with your people. You got to have daily connection with your people, focus on them, care about them, and the operation will grow over time.
And what I hear you saying in essence is you started as a real estate agent and figured out you were a team leader. It was, and a lot of people are the other way around. They start out, they want to be a team leader because like, hey, this is exciting, this is good. And they find out, I've become a real estate agent. That's what I'm pretty good at. So nothing wrong with either one. It's just, it's important that you figure out which one it is. And
leveraging, again, leverage is really important, but don't leverage at the expense of people. I see a lot of teams, companies, brokers that grow. Let's make more money. Let's put the agents out there. Let's make them do the dirty work. Never lasts. We've attracted a lot of really good people over the years who've been at operations where they're a cog in the wheel. Don't be a cog. Don't do that. It won't last long term, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for sharing. I learned a lot today, and I think our listeners did as well. And it's really a pleasure to be able to hear your philosophy and kind of, just a lot of stuff today we can, I think, pull out can be applied. So thank you so much. And for those that are doing the hard work of recruiting every day, take what you learned today and go make a difference.